A strange signal appeared on the edge of human space, right near the outer rim. It was quiet, weak, like a whisper in a storm, but it was still there. The computers inside the human defense satellite caught it first. The alert reached the HSS Iron Veil asleek. Dark gray destroyer orbiting near Jupiter. Its captain, Riley Ford, looked at the red light flashing on his console. He leaned forward, confused. Unknown vessel detected, the system said in a flat, cold voice. There was no ID code, no communication, and no response to the standard border hail, just silence. Where's it headed? Riley asked his navigator. Not toward a planet, sir. Just deeper in, she replied. Speed, slow. Like it's creeping, that made Riley uncomfortable. Slow ships were either broken or watching, and Riley had seen enough during the border skirmishes 2 years ago to know the difference. He opened a secure channel to Fleet Command. Admiral Harper's voice came through, calm and direct. Warn them once, she said. They don't respond, remove them. The crew of the Iron Veil prepared for interception. The ship turned, engines burning blue as it closed in on the intruder. It wasn't a massive vessel, more like a scout, covered in dark plates that shimmered strangely. It didn't look human, too long, too narrow, and almost insect-like in shape. Broadcasting warning now, the comms officer said. A strong, clear message was sent in every known language. This is sovereign human territory. Identify yourself or turn back. You are trespassing. The alien ship didn't reply, didn't change direction, didn't even speed up. It just floated forward. A deep silence spread on the bridge of the Iron Veil. Captain Riley clenched his jaw. He didn't want a war, but he also knew weakness invited attack. He looked at the screen, at the strange ship sliding deeper into human space like a shadow. Fire, he said. The Iron Veil launched 2 torpedoes. They streaked through the dark, lit with green trails, and then impact. The alien ship exploded in total silence, fire and light filling the screen for a few seconds. No escape pods, no debris signaling survival. Nothing left but glowing dust. Some of the crew cheered. It felt like a win, but Captain Riley didn't celebrate. He stared at the screen, thinking this wasn't an invasion. He said softly, this was a test. The room fell quiet again. A test of what, sir? Asked the young lieutenant. Riley turned toward her. A test to see if we were still watching. He knew they had been lucky. What if they had ignored the signal? What if the intruder had reached Mars or even Earth? Riley shivered slightly. Not from fear, but from knowing that something had changed. Someone out there had decided to poke the human borders, and now, whoever they were, they had their answer. He walked over to the message terminal and typed a brief line to Fleet Command. Contact made. Target eliminated. Possible recon probe. They're watching us. Admiral Harper responded within minutes. Prepare for increased incursions. Raise defense protocols. No hesitation, the bridge lights dimmed slightly as battle readiness was activated. Shields up, weapon systems loaded, drones released to patrol nearby sectors. The peaceful edge of human space had just become a war zone, far beyond Jupiter. In the cold silence of deep space, another signal blinked to life. Another strange shape moved quietly through the black. It had no name, no voice, no fear, but now it knew something for sure. Humans don't hesitate. Humans shoot first, and the price for trespassing is death. As the Iron Veil returned to its patrol route, Riley sat alone in his quarters. He looked at a small photo of Earth pinned to the wall. Peace, full, soft, peaceful, and he whispered to himself, no one enters human space without permission. He meant it, and soon the whole galaxy would understand. He turned off the lights, but his hand never left the sidearm resting on his belt. The stars outside were still shining, but now they felt colder than ever. Something was coming, and this time it wouldn't be just one ship. It would be a fleet, and humanity would be ready. Ready to defend, ready to strike, ready to prove once again. Humans were not prey. Humans were not to be tested. Humans were the line you didn't cross. Not without permission, not without consequences. Not without meeting your end. 2 days after the first alien ship was destroyed, everything seemed quiet. Again in human space, but Captain Riley didn't trust silence anymore, and he was right. At 0300 Standard Time, 5 new contacts appeared. 5 unknown ships jumped into 5 different corners of human-controlled territory, one near Saturn. One by Neptune, another close to Alpha Colony near Proxima b. Each one had a different design, sleek, sharp, almost elegant looking. But all of them had one thing in common. None of them asked permission to enter. None of them responded to hails. None of them cared that this was human space. Fleet Command immediately sent ships to intercept the HSS Thorn, a fast and heavily armed cruiser, was sent to the Neptune incursion. Captain Alina Hart led the charge. She was calm, quiet, and never missed a threat. As her ship approached the alien vessel, she gave one warning, just like protocol demanded. But before her words even finished, the alien ship opened fire. A beam of green light slashed across space and hit the Thorn's starboard engines. Alarms screamed. Hull breached. Fire on Deck 3. But Captain Hart didn't panic. Return. Fire, she ordered. The Thorn fired its plasma cannons and shredded the alien ship's left flank. The enemy tried to turn, but it was too late. Hart activated the self-defense mines they had dropped earlier. One after another, the mines detonated beneath the alien ship. A chain of explosions swallowed the vessel into smoke and drifting wreckage. But the Thorn wasn't safe. Its engines were damaged, communications weak, and power levels dropping. Captain Hart knew she couldn't make it home. So she sent out one final transmission with all data collected, then activated self-destruct. The last words from her ship were calm and proud. We held the line. Back on Earth, Admiral Harper read the report. 3 other alien ships had fled when challenged. Only one more had fought back but was destroyed by the HSS Banshee in orbit near Proxima b. But the cost was clear. Humans had won again, but barely. This is not random, she said in the command meeting. They're not here to explore or negotiate. They're measuring our response. John Carver, a young officer who had just returned from the HSS Colossus, sat in the corner. He raised a quiet question. What if this is their way of asking? How far will let them go? There was silence in the room for a moment. Everyone understood the deeper meaning. If humanity didn't act fast, the enemy would test more. Push harder, and then invade. So Harper gave the order. Activate Iron Curtain Protocol. Across human space, border stations powered down their public beacons. Satellites turned there. Sensors inward. Relay towers stopped transmitting location signals. The edge of human territory became invisible from the outside to the rest of the galaxy. It now looked like Earth had gone quiet, like humans were hiding. But they weren't. They were preparing. Ships that had been in dry dock were pulled into service. Old prototypes were brought online. Engineers worked around the clock, upgrading shields, weapons, jump drives, and at every single border, warships now floated in the darkness like silent sharks, waiting, watching on the HSS Iron Veil. Captain Riley received new orders: patrol without lights. No signals. Make them wonder if we're still out here. The message said. So he did. The Iron Veil glided through the darkness. Engines quiet, hull black as night. Riley watched the stars, wondering which one of them hid more enemies. He kept remembering the look of that first ship, the one that didn't even try to run. It had been a test, yes, but also maybe something more. A message, maybe. Not to start war, but to provoke it. And now, war felt closer than ever. Meanwhile, in a secret station hidden inside an asteroid near the edge. Of known space, a woman named Leah Cooper was sitting at a signal analysis desk. She was not a soldier, but a civilian specialist in alien language patterns. She had been tracking a strange repeating signal buried in the background of the alien probes. Tonight, it finally translated. She stared at her screen, heart beating. Fast, there were only 3 lines in the message: observe the humans, measure their reaction. Prepare for elimination. She stood up and ran to the internal comm panel. Fleet Command needs to see this right now, she said, breathless, in the next hour. That signal reached Admiral Harper's desk. Her hands trembled slightly. As she read it, not because she was afraid, but because it confirmed what she already feared. This wasn't just a scouting mission. It was a prelude to something bigger. Something worse. Back on the Iron Veil, Captain Riley received the update. He called his crew together, no ceremony, no fancy words, just one simple sentence: we're no longer watching for a war. He said, it's already begun. And as the crew returned to their stations, eyes sharp and hearts steady, a new message was sent into the void from Earth's strongest beacon. It was loud, clear, and in every known language. No one enters human space without permission. If you do, you won't leave, and somewhere in deep space, far beyond the stars, someone was listening and smiling, because this was exactly what they wanted: a response, a reaction, a reason to bring the real war. But humanity was ready. And their answer would come with fire, metal, and fury, because no one crossed the line and survived. Deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid near the edge of Saturn's rings, a secret human station called Echo 9 floated silently. It didn't look like much, just a gray metal shell covered in dust and shadows, but inside it, humanity's sharpest. Ears were always listening, not for voices, but for signals. Faint coded alien signals. Leah Cooper sat at her console, sipping cold coffee and staring at the wall of blinking lights. She wasn't a soldier, not a captain, not a hero. She was just a quiet analyst. But tonight, she would become the first person to hear the whisper of something terrible. One blinking light on her screen turned red. That meant a signal had been caught barely strong enough to reach them. Leah frowned, leaned forward, and tapped her fingers across the controls. Unknown frequency, the system said. She tilted her head, listening to the strange sound, a slow, looping pulse that rose and fell like breathing. Not a distress call, not a ship ID, something different. She amplified the signal, and as she did, her eyes widened. The source wasn't a ship or satellite. It was coming from a comet. A natural-looking icy body slowly drifting through the outer system, but the signal was embedded deep inside. It, not human-made alien. Leah jumped to her feet and hit the emergency relay. This is Echo 9. I've located a stealth probe transmitting from Comet 7 Grams C, she said. Repeat, this is not debris. It's planted, spying on us. The message raced to Fleet Command, and within 30 minutes, the nearest ship, the HSS Dawnblade, was rerouted to investigate. The Dawnblade was a swift strike cruiser known for its speed and precision. Commander John Carver was on board, still recovering from the recent battle at the Oort line. But when he heard about the alien probe, he straightened up and nodded without hesitation. Set course for 7 Grams C, he ordered, if they're watching us. It's time we start watching back. It took 4 hours to reach the comet. From the outside, it looked harmless, just a dirty snowball with a wobbly orbit, but the scans revealed something buried inside: a hard core of synthetic metal, surrounded by cooling systems and a transmitter cloaked in ice. It wasn't here by accident. It was a machine pretending to be part of space. Carver gave the order. The Dawnblade launched a controlled energy burst and shattered the comet's outer shell. Chunks of ice floated into the void, revealing a long, black device like a spear pointed toward Earth. The moment it was exposed, it sent one final burst of data. Then its core began to overheat. Shut it down. Carver yelled, but it was too late. The probe self-destructed, releasing a blinding flare. The only thing left was a half-melted recording module, spinning slowly in the darkness. The crew retrieved it and brought it aboard. Back at Echo 9, Leah watched the live feed, heart racing. The module was cracked, but still functional, and it was speaking. A voice not in words, but in tones, repeating a pattern. Leah's computer translated it slowly. The message repeated over and over. Observe the humans. Analyze weaknesses. Prepare for elimination. Leah froze, staring at the screen. It wasn't a scout. It wasn't exploring. It was a spy. She called Fleet Command. Again, this isn't about territory, she said. This is pre-invasion surveillance. Admiral Harper read the full transcript an hour later. Her face hardened. She knew what this meant. Someone out there was planning a war, not in weeks or months, but now. She forwarded the message to all high-level command posts. She also sent a direct order to Commander John Carver. Return immediately. Debrief in person. Project Sentinel is now active. John didn't ask what Project Sentinel was, but he felt the change in the air. He looked out the Dawnblade's window at the stars. Once, he used to think they were full of wonder. Now, they felt like they were, full of eyes. Watching, hunting, planning, back at Echo 9. Leah didn't go home. She stayed at her console, listening for another signal. Something inside her chest felt tight, like a warning bell. She wasn't a fighter, but she understood one thing clearly now. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This wasn't about peaceful first contact. This was about survival. And the first step in war wasn't a weapon. It was a question. How much will your enemy tolerate? How long before they fight back? The probe had come for answers. And now it had them across human space. Defense systems switched to Phase 2. Stealth fleets were activated, silent zones locked. Drones launched in every direction, mapping the dark for more hidden threats. And a new message was added to every border broadcast. You are being watched. Do not test human space. Trespassing is an act of war, somewhere. In an alien system far from any star chart, a room of silent figures studied the last data from the destroyed probe. They nodded to one another slowly. No fear in their eyes, only calculation. The humans responded faster than expected, but they were still predictable, and predictable enemies could still be defeated. Back on Earth, Admiral Harper sat alone in her office. Staring at a map of the stars, she tapped her pen slowly. One word appeared on the center of the screen. Written in bold red text, invasion likely. She looked up and whispered to herself, then let them come. We'll show them why no one enters human space without permission, and why those who try never return. The warning signs were everywhere now. Alien ships had probed human space from 5 directions. A hidden probe was discovered inside a comet, and now another signal was detected. This one stronger. Faster, more deliberate. It wasn't hiding. It came from the edge of the Oort cloud. And it wasn't just one ship this time, it was a fleet. Big enough to be seen by long-range scanners. 24 alien vessels forming a wide arc. Moving toward human space, slow but steady. It was not an accident. It was a show of power, Admiral. Harper stood in the center of the command dome, her eyes locked on the red shapes forming on the star map. She gave one order: form Battle Group Atlas. Within 6 hours, every hangar bay, spaceport, and shipyard buzzed with action. Dreadnoughts that hadn't launched in years were reactivated. Cruisers were refueled. Torpedo bays loaded. Crews were called in without rest. There was no time to wait, no time to debate. Battle Group Atlas was formed in less than 12 hours. 3 dreadnoughts, 5 heavy cruisers, 10 support vessels, and 7 fighter wings. Leading the force was the HSS Colossus, a massive old warship with deep scars on its hull from a past war. Commander John Carver was assigned to it as second-in-command. He boarded with quiet focus. He had seen what the aliens were doing. He knew this wasn't just another test. This was the real first move as the fleet approached the Oort line. Silence filled every deck. No one spoke loud, no one laughed. Everyone understood what was coming. This would be humanity's first full battle in deep space since the Orion Rebellion 50 years ago. But this time, the enemy wasn't human. The alien fleet held formation as the humans closed in. No message was sent, no warning issued, just slow movement. Like a knife being drawn slowly across a table. Admiral Harper's voice came through every ship in the battle group. "This is the final warning to the incoming fleet," she said. "You are entering human-controlled space. You must stop and retreat now." Seconds passed, then minutes. No reply came. "Stand by to fire," came the next order. On board the Colossus, John Carver stood next to Captain Lena Duke, an old war veteran with cold eyes and steady hands. She turned to him and said, "They were hoping we'd hesitate, but we won't." John replied. Then it began. The HSS Hurricane, one of the forward cruisers, opened fire first. Missiles streaked across the stars, followed by heavy plasma beams. The alien ships answered back at once. Green and purple energy weapons lit up the dark sky. The first blast struck the HSS Falcon, burning through its midsection and forcing it to retreat. Then the real battle began. It was chaos in motion. Fighters zipped between massive ships, dropping mines and intercepting torpedoes. Cruisers danced and turned, trading blows with alien gunships. And the dreadnoughts, slow but powerful, rumbled forward like giants in the dark. The HSS Colossus fired its main cannon straight through an enemy battleship. It cracked open like glass spinning into pieces, but the aliens adapted quickly. They didn't retreat, they didn't panic. They kept coming. Fast and precise, 2 human support ships were destroyed in the second wave. The HSS Typhoon took 3 direct hits and had to be evacuated. John Carver found himself in the weapons command room, hands shaking as he called out targeting orders. His voice didn't waver, but inside, he was stunned by the speed of the enemy. They were coordinated, not reckless, not testing anymore. This was invasion. Just when it seemed like the humans would be overwhelmed, Captain Duke made a bold move. She directed the Colossus to dive straight into the enemy center. "Ram them." "If we have to," she said. John stared at her in shock. "That'll get us all killed. We're already dying slowly." "Let's make it count." The Colossus surged forward, weapons blazing. It tore through 2 smaller alien ships before coming face to face with the enemy command cruiser. John locked on the reactor core. "Fire everything," he said, and they did. A massive blast shook the void. The alien command ship exploded in a shockwave of light. The rest of the alien fleet hesitated, and that's when humanity struck again. Every dreadnought opened fire at once. The enemy formation broke apart. Some fled, some exploded, some vanished into jump space. The battle was over, but the cost was heavy. For human ships destroyed, 3 barely holding together, hundreds of lives lost. But the line was held, back at Fleet Command. Admiral Harper stood before the holographic star map. She watched the remaining alien blips disappear. Then she turned to her officers. "They will come again," she said. "They won't stop here, John." Carver's final report came through an hour later. He didn't write much, just a few words. "The enemy is smart, strong, and prepared. But so are we." And then, one final sentence. "We didn't fall back, not one step." That sentence was sent to every screen across human colonies to let the people know their defenders stood strong. and no one would pass without fire, without resistance, without loss. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. No one enters human space without permission, and if they do, they'll have to fight for every inch of it, with blood, with metal, and with everything humanity has. The battle was over, but peace didn't follow. Human ships were damaged, repair yards were full, and funerals echoed across every space station. But the most troubling news wasn't about what had happened, it was about what didn't. No prisoners, no escape pods, no recovered tech with answers. The alien fleet had burned hard, fought harder, and vanished without a trace. Admiral Harper paced inside the strategy chamber under Luna command. Everyone waited for her decision. She finally stopped and looked around the room. "We need to hit them back," she said, "not react. Strike first," and that meant activating a secret plan, something only a few top commanders knew about. A classified region known only as the Black Zone. Years ago, long before alien contact, humans had prepared for the worst. They built 3 warships in deep silence, hidden inside a mining station orbiting a dead star. Each ship had experimental weapons, prototype cloaking systems, and AI-assisted tactical engines. They were never named publicly, only registered under ghost codes. Now, they would see the stars for the first time. Captain Riley, fresh off the Iron Veil, was summoned to Luna Base. He entered the hangar and stopped in awe. Before him floated a jet-black warship, shaped like a knife and built for speed. Its hull absorbed light, its engines made no sound. A panel beside him simply read, "HS's Silent Storm. You're taking her into the Shadow Nebula," Admiral Harper told him. "Find where they're coming from and burn it down." 2 other commanders joined the mission: Captain Nadia Voss aboard HSS Dusk Howl, and Major Ken Yates on the HSS Phantom Tide. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. They had one goal: strike the enemy where it hurts. The 3 ships jumped using a hidden gate, one not registered on any star map. They arrived inside the Shadow Nebula, a swirling field of gas and debris near the far side of the galactic rim. Sensors failed the moment they entered. Light bent strangely, and space felt wrong. But soon, their visuals picked up something enormous. Not just ships, a full alien staging ground. Dozens of supply ships, construction yards, fueling platforms, and warships orbiting a cold black dwarf. It was a fortress, a base meant to supply invasion after invasion. The human ships didn't wait. There was no diplomacy left to try. They launched their strike silently, one shot at a time. No warning, no signals. Just fire in the dark. The Silent Storm targeted fuel tanks first. Each torpedo struck with precision. Massive explosions lit up the nebula. The alien fleet began to panic. They had never seen cloaked attackers before. The Dusk Howl launched plasma bursts into hangars filled with fighters. The Phantom Tide dropped stealth mines into shipping lanes, one by one. Alien ships ignited like candles in the wind. Captain Riley kept his hands steady on the controls. He whispered commands to the ship's AI as flak ripped across the hull. Every movement was sharp, exact, ruthless. The enemy didn't even know who was attacking them. Then something strange happened. The largest alien ship, a carrier bigger than a city, began to power up a strange device. It wasn't a weapon. It was a transmitter, a warning beacon. They're calling for reinforcements. Major Yates said through comms. Captain Voss shouted, "Take it out now." The Silent Storm raced forward, its cloaking breaking apart as speed increased. It launched its final payload directly into the carrier's core. The blast was massive. The shockwave hit all 3 human ships, knocking systems offline for 30 seconds. There was only silence. Then static returned to comms. Status. Captain Riley called out. The Dusk Howl was heavily damaged, but still alive. The Phantom Tide was drifting, its engines cold, but they had done it. The alien base was in ruins. supplies destroyed, fleet crippled. The invasion lines broken before they could fully form, the three ships turned back, using emergency jump drives. No victory music played, no cheering, just silence and relief, back at Luna Command. Admiral Harper received the full report. She didn't smile, she didn't speak, for a long moment. Then she walked to the central display and highlighted the words, "Black Zone mission complete, enemy base neutralized." But she also added a note. "Cloaking tech exposed, enemy will adapt." John Carver read the report from his quarters aboard the Colossus. He closed the file and looked out the window at the stars. "We hurt them," he whispered, "but they're not done." In the ruins of the alien staging base, a small orb floated silently among the debris. It was black, round, and blinking. Read from within, a deep alien voice recorded inside whispered only one word again and again. "Observe," because even in defeat, they were learning, watching, planning. But now, so was humanity, and the message was clearer than ever if they came again. They wouldn't be facing patrol ships or border guards. They would be facing silent killers, cloaked warriors, and weapons made in darkness. Because from this point on, every part of human space was armed. Every station was watching. Every fleet was ready. And the next time an alien dared to come close, they wouldn't just face resistance, they'd face extinction, because no one enters human space without permission, and no one leaves it without scars. The alien base in the Shadow Nebula was gone. Its fuel lines destroyed, its carriers shattered, and its communication towers melted into slag. But it didn't stop them. It woke them up within 3 days of the Black Zone. Assault. Every human listening post lit up with warnings. Not small ships now, not scouts. This time it was full fleets from 3 corners of the galaxy. Alien forces surged forward. They weren't sneaking, they weren't scouting. They were coming to punish humanity, and they weren't alone. All 3 attack groups moved fast. One headed for Earth, the heart of human civilization. The second moved toward Mars, where the majority of fleet shipyards were located. And the third, perhaps the most dangerous, was aimed at Europa. A fragile research colony with barely any defenses, alarms echoed through every spaceport, every station, every moon base. Admiral Harper stood in the emergency command tower above Earth. Orbit, her voice clear and hard. "We knew this was coming," she said. "Now we show them we're not afraid on Earth." The skies above the Atlantic filled with drones, jets, orbital cannons, and re-entry fighters. Citizens were told to shelter, but many stood on rooftops, watching, some out of fear, others out of pride. Above Mars, railgun platforms began warming up. The red planet sky shimmered with shield fields. The HSS Warspire, one of the few dreadnoughts left unscathed, hovered over the central command base, ready for a last stand. But it was Europa that everyone feared might fall. The colony was young, unprotected, a science outpost, not a military site. When the alien fleet approached its ice-blue horizon, it looked like a blade slicing toward a sleeping child. There was only one defense ship in the region, the HSS Valiant. It was fast, but lightly armed. Commander Cassie Ward was in charge. She wasn't famous. She wasn't from a fleet family. She just knew how to fight. The moment she saw the incoming fleet, she made a decision. "We're not waiting," she said. "Boost engines. Head straight into them." Her crew stared at her. "We won't survive that," someone said. Cassie nodded. "But they won't reach Europa." The Valiant jumped forward like a firestorm. It tore through the first wave of alien ships, dodging beams, dropping mines, scattering their formation. Then it hit them with a surprise and experimental solar flare cannon. Still untested, Cassie had loaded it manually when it fired. It burned a hole through space itself. The alien command ship vanished in an instant. But the cost was high. The Valiant was crippled, its engines gone, its shields shattered. As it drifted into the icy rings of Europa, Cassie smiled. She had bought time. And that was enough. Back on Earth, the battle turned brutal. The alien fleet dropped pod after pod toward the oceans. But human orbital defenses cut through them like lightning. Drones crashed into enemy ships, self-destructing on impact. The sky turned red with fire trails. Mars held strong. The alien ships never made it to the surface. They were torn apart in orbit, and when one got too close, the Warspire launched its entire stockpile of fusion torpedoes. The explosion could be seen from Earth with the naked eye when the smoke cleared. The battles were over. Humanity had taken hits. Yes, lost ships, lost soldiers, lost civilians. But they had held all three lines. Not a single colony had fallen. Not one planet surrendered across every human world. People came out of shelters and looked up. They didn't see enemy ships. They saw the burning pieces of alien vessels streaking across the sky. Admiral Harper stood in front of the Central War Council hours later. Her uniform was dusty, her voice hoarse, but her eyes steady. And they failed in all three. Commander John Carver was there too. He stepped forward and added, "We're not just defending anymore, we're winning." The room didn't cheer. They were too tired for that. But they nodded, because it was true. In a quiet hospital on Europa, Cassie Ward woke up, her side wrapped in bandages. A little girl stood beside her bed, holding a flag made from tape and plastic. She whispered, "You saved us." Cassie smiled weakly. "Not just me." She said, "All of us, and far." Far away on the edge of known space, alien commanders watched the data feed in silence. They had expected humans to break, to scatter, to hide behind their planets. Instead, they found something they didn't understand. Resistance, stubbornness, unity. One of the alien strategists whispered in his own language. They defend like beasts, but fight like machines. Still, they did not retreat. Their leaders would not allow it, but they began to question. And questions lead to hesitation, and hesitation in war is deadly. The human fleet began repair operations. Shipyards ran non-stop. New weapons were tested, old alliances were rekindled, and one by one, human captains wrote the same phrase into their mission logs. "We didn't ask for this war. But now that it's here, we will end it, because now even the aliens understood one truth: you can challenge humanity. You can even hurt them, but if you expect them to fall, you've never seen what happens when they rise. Because no one enters human space without permission, and no one strikes humanity without facing its fire. And now, the fire was just getting started. Earth was still standing. Mars was alive. Europa had survived, but humanity was done waiting, done defending, done bleeding. Admiral Harper stared at the galactic map hovering over the war table. Red marks showed enemy strongholds, supply bases, communication centers, fleet yards, places the aliens thought were safe. Places they thought humans wouldn't dare touch. Harper looked at her senior commanders. "It's time," she said. "Operation Leviathan begins now." That name had been locked away for decades. A plan created only for one purpose: total, overwhelming retaliation. Not a mission to strike and run, a mission to crush, to end, within days. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled formed at the edge of soul space. 6 dreadnoughts, 20 cruisers, 30 support ships, and hundreds of fighters. They weren't going in quietly. This wasn't a hidden raid. This was a declaration. Leading the charge was the dreadnought HSS Monarch. Newly rebuilt and bristling with the newest tech. John Carver stood aboard her bridge, now promoted to battle group commander. Beside him was Leah Cooper, the signal analyst who once sat quietly in Eco 9. Now she stood tall in a Navy uniform. Her eyes locked on enemy transmissions. She was no longer just listening. She was guiding weapons. Their destination was Zevroth, a heavily protected alien warworld believed to be home to the enemy's command network. No human ship had ever gone near it, but John planned to land there and break it. The fleet jumped, and space twisted around them. When they arrived, Zevrath looked like a living monster in the dark. Its surface glowed red with forges, and above, it floated more than 40 alien ships, all armed, all watching, waiting. The aliens responded immediately. Their fleet moved fast, cutting through space like razors. But humanity didn't flinch. The Monarch fired first. A railgun shot so powerful it split an enemy cruiser in two. The HSS Vindicator followed, launching a wall of drones that blanketed the enemy in chaos. The aliens responded with terrifying precision. Beams of energy cut through one of the support ships. Another was swallowed by a magnetic gravity mine, but the humans kept pushing forward. Fighters darted between enemy ships like insects, stinging and burning. Dreadnoughts pressed through the center, ignoring hits, firing back with fury. John stood at the center of it all, giving orders, adapting, striking. He watched 3 enemy ships surround the HSS Tempest. "Don't wait," he said. "Ram the closest one." The Tempest obeyed. It smashed into the alien ship and detonated its reactors. Both ships were lost, but the path opened. Leah tracked the enemy's command. "Signals, they're hiding underground," she said, pointing to a mountain cluster on Zevrath's surface. "That's their war center." John looked at the planet below. "Then we're going in," he said. A strike team launched from the Monarch in drop pods. Heavy infantry, mobile tanks, AI bots, and Leah leading the data squad as the pods hit. The surface, alien defenses lit up turrets, plasma bursts, screeching alarms. The sky above them burned with the chaos of the ongoing space battle. But the team pressed on. They tore through bunkers, stormed command rooms, and finally reached the central tower where the alien war network pulsed in blue light. There, they found something shocking. The aliens weren't giving orders from computers. They were using living commanders giant, wired into machines controlling fleets with thought. Leah's voice cracked. "They're linked directly to every attack, every decision. If we take them out, we shut them down." John gave the order. The soldiers raised their cannons. The tower was silenced in a blaze of heat and metal. Above the planet, the alien fleet faltered. Ships stopped moving, commands broke, the formation collapsed. The human fleet seized the moment. Dreadnoughts fired without pause. Cruisers cut through enemy lines. Within minutes, the sky was clear. Zevrath burned, and the enemy retreated. The human flag was placed on the command tower ruins, a small act, but loud in meaning. The message was sent to every corner of the galaxy, a short recording of John Carver. Standing in front of the alien ruins, his voice calm, his expression steady. "You studied us," he said. "You tested us. You struck first, and now we're here. We don't want your worlds. We don't need your surrender. But if you bring war to us, we will return it tenfold." He paused, then ended with the words now known across all human colonies. "No one enters human space without permission. And no one leaves it without scars." The feed ended, and the stars listened. Back on the Monarch, Leah sat beside John, her voice quiet. "You think it's over?" He shook his head. "No," he said. "But now, they know who we are, and in the dark spaces between galaxies." Other empires listened. Some stayed silent. Others backed away from their own expansion plans, because now they knew humanity wasn't just another species. They were a storm, unforgiving, unbreakable, and very much awake. 3 months passed since the fall of Zevrath. Human ships no longer just patrolled borders. They controlled them. Alien incursions stopped. No more scouts, no more probes, no more fleets. The silence across the stars wasn't peace. It was fear. The kind of silence that comes after a loud, sharp message is heard by everyone. And that message had been made clear on Earth. Children in schools now learned the names of human ships like Legends Monarch, Colossus, Valiant. Statues were raised. On Europa for Cassie Ward, and John Carver's speech was replayed across every colony and station. But humanity wasn't celebrating blindly. They were preparing. The damage was still fresh. Lives had been lost. Wounds were still healing. But one truth was now undeniable: humans had drawn a new line in the galaxy, and this time it wouldn't be crossed. Fleet Command didn't waste a second. Dozens of new stations were built at key borders. Massive defensive rings surrounded Mars and Jupiter. Earth's orbit became home to the Leviathan-Walla chain of weapon satellites. Mines and railgun towers linked by AI-controlled drones. It was the largest defense network ever created by humans. And it came with a warning, engraved in metal, displayed in every alien language, floating at the edge of deep space. A message burned into steel. You are entering Terran space. Request permission before crossing. If you don't, we won't ask questions. You've been warned. Admiral Harper stood before it during the ceremony. No music, no celebration, just a quiet unveiling. She said only one sentence to the gathered soldiers and press. "This isn't a threat," she said. "It's a promise." Meanwhile, John Carver had been promoted. But he refused a desk. He remained aboard the HSS Monarch. Now serving as commander of the Outer Line, he wore no medals, gave no speeches. He simply stood watch, because he knew, even after victory, danger always returns. And someone had to be first to see it. Leah Cooper stayed aboard too. Her signal station now upgraded with the most advanced detection tech in human history. She watched everything, listened to every whisper across the void. And though the stars were quiet, she never took off her headset. One day, faint signal came in from the dark, not hostile, not cloaked, a single ship broadcasting peacefully. It was a merchant vessel from a distant alien race, one that had watched the war but never joined it. They waited at the border. Not crossing, not testing. Just hovering near the warning beacon. John watched the screen and raised an eyebrow. "First visitor in months," he muttered. Leah smiled slightly. "At least they're knocking this time." John opened a channel. "This is human territory," he said. "State your purpose and wait for approval." The alien voice came through, cautious but respectful. "We seek trade, knowledge, and peace." John didn't answer right away. He turned to his officers and nodded. "Scan them top to bottom," he said. "If they're clean, let them in. But we'll escort them the entire way." Minutes later, the merchant ship was cleared. Two human cruisers guided it through the defense wall. The first foreign ship allowed into human space since the war. And just like that, the galaxy had changed again. Not through invasion, but through understanding. Because even aliens had started to realize something strange about humanity. They weren't conquerors. They weren't looking to take planets, steal resources, or dominate others. But when pushed, when threatened, when invaded, they responded with force that no one expected. Across distant systems, the story of the Terrans spread. Some called them monsters, others called them warriors. But all called them one thing: untouchable. Some species began adopting human terms. Permission before entry became common policy in neutral zones. Other empires added defensive alliances with Earth, and those who once mocked humanity stayed very quiet. Admiral Harper eventually retired. She left command, not with medals, but with silence. She walked alone on the surface of Luna, gazing at Earth's blue glow, and whispered, "We didn't ask to lead, but we earned our place." John Carver, now older, still patrolled the edge. The stars didn't scare him anymore. But he never stopped watching. On his console sat a small metal plate, scratched and scorched from battle. It read, "They entered without permission and never came." Back and Leah Cooper, now director of the Signal Corps. trained the next generation of listeners. She told them, "Don't look for danger. Look for hesitation." That's how it always starts. The Terran flag now flew not just on planets, but on deep space platforms, trade hubs, and neutral stations. It didn't mean dominance. It meant warning. Respect us or regret it. Because humanity was no longer the overlooked species from a quiet blue world. They were the storm at the edge of the map, the wall no one crossed, the voice that replied with steel, and the legend grew. From whispered alien tales to official galactic records, passed from fleet to fleet, star to star, no one enters human space without permission, or without meeting their end, and for the first time in galactic history, everyone listened, everyone learned, and most importantly, everyone remembered.